All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Be That Guy podcast. My name is DJ Ligori, and this is our first official follow-up episode to our guest episodes. And this one is for Brandon Danowski. Brandon was the first guy who we interviewed on the show, and it's episode number 182. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I highly recommend that you go listen to that episode. It was about an hour long, and we talked about everything that guys typically don't talk about when it comes to partying, relationships, consistency, discipline, stress, anxiety, social media, all of these things that I think a lot of guys want to talk about, yet we are never necessarily really given the platform to do so. And so that's what Brandon and I did in that whole episode. And we've gotten a ton of positive feedback from that episode for both guys and girls. So if you haven't had the chance, go listen to that episode because it will explain a lot of what I talk about today in this episode. And so, as I've previously kind of mentioned, the way that I want to do this is I'm going to release a guest episode in the first 2 weeks of each month. And then in the second 2 weeks of each month, I'm going to have a follow-up episode to that guest episode. And the follow-up episode is essentially what I'm going to do today. I'm going to hit on maybe 3 to 4 of the important topics that the guest that we had on and me talked about in that episode and kind of break them down even more so that any guy who's listening to this can have 3 action items that they can take from that episode that I'm going to explain in more depth in these follow-up episodes, okay? So what I'm going to do today is I have 8 different sections that I'm going to kind of try to condense into maybe 15 to 20 minutes that all outlines the things that Brandon and I talked about. And what I want to do then is at the end of today's episode, I want to give each guy basically 3 action steps that they can implement today that can help them with managing their stress, being a more confident guy, and developing healthier habits into their early 20s and kind of into their later 20s, okay? So the first thing that I wanted to hit on, and this is going to be a very interesting statement here, yet if you are between the ages of 18 and 25, I do not believe you should have a girlfriend or be in any relationship. And here's why. During that time, you're in a very discovery-oriented phase of your life. You're just starting to actually legally be able to drink alcohol and go out and have much more of a social life. And when you do that, you start to, I think a lot differently about yourself, about your life, about money, about the time that you spend on certain activities and certain habits and what ultimately becomes important to you, because now you have a lot more freedom, right? You've typically, let's say you've gone to college, you've graduated college, and now you're into the real world of working some sort of job, right? Or let's say you graduated high school and you went into trade school. Now you're 18, 19 years old. Now you automatically already have this freedom. So between these ages of 18 and 25, there's a lot of things going on. And if you were to get into a relationship, I believe that the person who you get into a relationship with is really only seeing like 40% of who you truly are. Because the remaining 60% of us as men, I think needs to be developed throughout those mid-20s. Because we're still so young in that age. And I don't think that a relationship is something that we really need at that point of our lives. And I wrote down right here, it's a critical time to focus on yourself and actually build yourself into the man that you want to be. And basically, and one of the things I remember we said in the podcast was become a better product. Become a more valued man in that age range of 18 to 25. Go on vacations with your buddies, right? Have a little bit of freedom, because as you get older, that freedom is gonna get a little bit tighter, right? Once you get into, let's say, a more serious relationship in your later 20s, you're gonna be a little bit more aware about money. You're gonna be a little bit more aware of, hey, do I wanna start a family? Where am I gonna live? What's my rent? What's my mortgage? How's my job? So in that 18 to 25 range, like, it sounds kind of cliche, but go find yourself a little bit. Go take some risks. Go on some vacations. Go explore a little bit more than I think you would in your later 20s. And I don't think having a relationship in that time is the right thing to do personally. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend with a lot of these guys, because I know that Brandon and I, we talked about developing yourself and taking the time to actually figure out what's important to you as a man, right? Is it, hey, I really want to focus on making a lot of money, or I really want to focus on being a really good dad one day, or a really good husband, or I really want to focus on being a great friend? And why not maybe focus on all three of those, right? Those are all some valuable things to work towards. So the first thing I want to talk about, between the ages of 18 and 25, I recommend taking the time to focus on yourself and not necessarily being in a relationship at that point of your life. All right. Later into your 20s, when you're a little bit more developed as a man, you probably have a little bit more money. You probably know a little bit more of what you want. You probably have some more clear values. You are now a higher valued man, right? You're actually a more secure man probably at that point. I know personally, throughout my 20s, between that time frame of 18 to 25, I was in no shape to be in a relationship. I was in no shape because I was stressed, I was anxious, and I was actually trying to figure out so much of who I was and how to manage anxieties and manage social media and partying and drinking and girls and all of those things, that I was no product that a woman would honestly probably want to be with. Yet into my later 20s, I'm 29 right now as of making this podcast, now I have a little bit of a foundation under me. Now I have a little bit of money to work with. Now I have a little bit of a vision of what I want with my life. And if there is a female or whoever you are attracted to who also has that similar vision, hey, maybe we can build something together here, right? So take that time in those early 20s to really develop yourself, and don't necessarily rush into a relationship, because you're gonna have plenty of time to do that past the age of 25, all right? So that was number one. Number two, relationships. They are the biggest investment of your life, especially your intimate relationships, all right? So connecting back to that concept of the 18 to 25, if you do rush into a relationship in that time, we have to remember just how big of an investment this is, right? This is you essentially sharing like 50% of your life with somebody else, right? And so we want to make sure that we are at a certain point where we are mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally ready to do that. And I think a lot of the times we get pressured into, hey, we got to have a girlfriend. And if I don't have a girlfriend, I'm a loser, or I can't talk to girls, or how will people perceive me? And there's a lot of value in navigating those beliefs and actually turning them back on yourself and saying, I'm actually becoming a man that women or whoever I'm attracted to are attracted to, right? I think the important thing for us to remember, the Jordan Peterson line of, how do I get women to like me? Well, how do I become a man that women like? Take that time to become that man that women or whoever you are attracted to falls in love with and wants to be with, because you are a high ticket human, right? You're a high valued guy. All right. So relationships are one of the biggest investments that you'll ever make. Don't rush into them without knowing what you're looking for and who you truly are. All right. So that was number two. And number three, this connects nicely. The difference between being alone versus being lonely. All right. Being alone is a decision. It's about choosing to develop yourself. One of the things that I love to do is I love to go on long walks by myself with no music, just my own thoughts, and think about where I am in life. Think about some things that I might want to change. Think about some things that I might want to look forward to that are exciting. Now, when I'm on those walks, do I think that I'm lonely? Not at all. I think that I'm just choosing to be alone in that moment. I want some time for myself. And I think in life, there is a very important balance of being alone, intentionally choosing to have some time by yourself for thought and reflection, as well as having time for community and connection and relationships with other people. I think there's a really important integration of both of those in a balance. All right. Being lonely is an emotional state that often comes from a lack of purpose or direction. Now, I feel like I have total purpose and I feel like I have a direction. I've been very clear with that direction of building this mentorship program for young men called the Be That Guy program. So that's my direction, right? And my purpose is to help young men manage their stress, be more confident, and develop better habits, because those were the things that I struggled with in my late teens and early 20s, figured out a couple things that helped really well, AKA eat, move, sleep, and having personal and professional projects, which essentially is our curriculum for the Be That Guy coaching program. And that strategy and that curriculum is essentially what we teach young men today. All right. So that's my purpose. All right. So I never feel lonely in that regard, yet I do intentionally take the time to be alone. So take this time to become your own influence and develop self-leadership. All right. Become the leader of yourself. All right. This is where we really start to tie in agency and becoming a man with values and virtues and directions. And you become a more highly valued man, not only to possible romantic relationships, it also to your employer, to your friends, to your family, to yourself. All right. I think as men, it's our job to become more valuable, to become more useful. And I think we have to manage the stress and the anxiety that it takes to become more valuable and more useful. And that's part of the challenge. I was listening to Joe Rogan this morning, and he said, having your shit together is hard. That's the point. This is not supposed to be this easy cakewalk of life. These things are going to be hard, and they build character. They make us tougher. They make us more resilient, and we want to face those things. That is important to developing ourselves as good, healthy, strong, smart, capable men. All right? And that might require us taking some of this time alone to actually think through our thoughts, actually understand a little bit more about ourselves. All right? So the difference between being alone versus being lonely. The fourth thing, social media and external influences. So the last thing I mentioned in section 3 about that difference between being alone and being lonely is taking the time to become your own influence. So I want you to think about, what are you letting influence you in your life? And a good way to think about this is, where do you spend the most of your time? All right. So if you are at school, your teachers or your professors or your friends or your classmates are probably big influences on your behavior or the way that you think. If you are at a job, your boss or your coworkers, or even the work that you do, probably has a big influence on how you behave or how you think. If you spend a lot of time on social media, the things that you consume on social media unconsciously will actually start to influence you as well. I'm a big victim of this, because in my early 20s, I set aside 2 to 3 hours a day during my workday to go on social media and just scroll and let it rip. And I was being so influenced that I literally scrolled myself into anxiety. All right. So I want you to think about, who are you letting influence you, right? Is it your parents? Is it your friends? How big of a influencing role does social media play in your life? And if you think that you are somebody who goes on social media a lot and you're really trying to not go on social media a lot, and I get it, it's hard. It's a dopamine hit. It's a very sexy, entertaining, quick thing that takes zero effort to experience. And we love it. And it is random and it's entertaining. It's everything that plays into our human desires. And so it's very hard, and it's in the palm of your hand, and it's right there accessible 24/7. All right. Think about how hard that is to actually manage that. We were never taught how to manage that powerful of a tool. And now we have to figure out how to actually navigate it. So here are 3 things that have helped me significantly with managing my social media usage. And in our episode, my episode with Brandon actually said that he actually gave up social media. I think he's on day 40 or so now. He completely deleted TikTok, and he's completely off of Instagram. Now, I'm not saying you have to go complete cold turkey, yet if you do, let it rip, right? Give it a shot, see how it goes. I bet you would be less anxious. I definitely bet you would be less anxious. Yet these are 3 things that I personally do that help me with social media. The first thing I do is I put a 10-minute daily limit on Instagram. Instagram is really the only one that I use besides Facebook, TikTok, things like that, depending upon the content that I'm posting. Yet I put a 10-minute limit on Instagram. All right. The second, which you can do just by going into your settings and putting I believe there's something called like app limits, and you can just literally hit Instagram and put a 10-minute limit. All right. So it limits your usage per day to 10 minutes. It's fantastic. The second thing you can do is turn your phone to grayscale. This is something that I had a buddy of mine show me, where you can actually turn your phone to all black and white. And looking at Instagram in black and white is, it's not entertaining at all. It's actually fairly boring. You know, those people don't look as tan. Those abs don't look as cut. That car doesn't look as pretty. He and she doesn't look as pretty. All right. Everything becomes dull. Everything becomes not that cool. So change your phone to grayscale, and what you'll realize is that you have zero interest in going on Instagram or even actually looking at your phone. All right. I've done this for the past probably 4 or 5 years, and it is a complete game changer when it comes to actually using your phone. I don't like looking at my phone. Hence, that's why probably some people are like, dude, you never text me back or email us, because like I actually don't really like looking at it because it's in grayscale mode. Like it's ugly to look at. All right. So put your phone in grayscale mode. It's a settings. I recommend just going right on Google and just typing, how do I put my phone into grayscale mode? And it'll walk you through how to do it. It'll take about 30 seconds and it is super, super beneficial. The last thing that I would do when it comes to phone usage is to keep your phone out of your room when you go to sleep. One of the things that I have found is that we struggle with sleep because we hold on to the day as long as we can because we're not ready to experience the amount of effort required in the next day. Effort required when it comes to hearing that alarm clock go off, when it comes to actually getting out of bed, when it comes to actually making breakfast or going to the gym or starting our day. All of that is effort. And we know that if we extend the day before by going on our phone or watching Netflix and escaping a little bit, we actually prolong experiencing that effort of the next day. So in order to actually just cut all those severs, have a designated area outside of your bedroom where you actually put your phone to charge. So what I do each night is I have my desk that is like a little nook area. I don't know if you can see it in my apartment, but it's back there. And I put my phone on my charger there, and then I go to bed. Because when you go into bed, one of the things I've also just recently did is I took the batteries out of my remote and I put them on the other side of the apartment so that I'm not tempted to turn on the TV and watch 30 minutes of Friends, which I thoroughly enjoy doing. So I removed all obstacles, and last night I went to bed at 9 p.m. sharp and got 8 hours and 20 minutes of sleep, and it was fantastic, and I felt awesome the next day. I woke up at 5 a.m. and just boom, completely fine. All right, so remove your phone from your room. It'll completely cut off that opportunity to keep scrolling on TikTok, keep scrolling on Instagram, and actually go to bed and get a good night of sleep. All right. So your 3 boundaries: 10-minute limit on social media, turn your phone to grayscale, and keep your phone out of your room at night when you're charging it. All right. So number 5, become your own influence. All right. And so this is a super, super important thing that I learned a lot in my early 20s. And in my early 20s, I've shared how I struggled a lot with stress and anxiety and figuring out my path, my self-worth, my self-esteem, confidence, all of those things. And what really helped me the most was kind of 2 areas. My fundamentals of how I eat, move, and sleep, and then getting a mentor, which I've shared, right? His name is Scott Gibbs, and we started Acres of Diamonds together. And Be That Guy is the mental fitness program for young men that was created by Acres of Diamonds. And so in those early 20s and still to this day, I started to try and actually influence myself. And what that means is I started to treat myself more like an investment. I started to take myself more seriously. I stopped drinking as much as I typically was. I stopped partying as much as I typically was. And what I did is I traded those hours for actually investing in myself. I started to read more books. I started to listen to more podcasts. I started to invest in coaches to actually coach me on my thinking. I started to get involved with different groups and different communities that I thought had people in them that were smarter than me, that were going to make me a smarter, stronger, and healthier man, because that became important to me. Because the pain of feeling like I didn't have direction was too painful enough to stay there, so I had to do something. There's a great lesson on how valuable pain can be. All right. I started to take more courses on mindset, human behavior, psychology, emotional intelligence, leadership, all throughout my 20s. And I'm still doing these things. And so I became my own influence. All right. And I want you to think about what happens when you start to become your own influence. When you start to actually take yourself serious enough to go read a book for 30 minutes a day, or to go listen to a podcast in the morning while you're just making breakfast, or when you go on that walk by yourself, or set aside on an hour on a Saturday or a Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. because you didn't go out the night before and you stayed in and you got a good night of sleep. I'm not saying just to completely cut off your social life yet. I'm saying to have some moderation with it and to take yourself seriously and to treat yourself like an investment. And taking a Saturday or Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. and investing in a course that teaches you about stress or about anxiety or about emotional intelligence, the number one predictor, which is the number one predictor of success in 2025, emotional intelligence as men. All right, think about that. All right, that's a lot of the stuff that we talk about in our group coaching sessions is how can we be more emotionally intelligent men. And guys, little side note, you ask any woman today, assuming you are a heterosexual male, if you ask any woman today, what is it that they're looking for in men? They will say something along the lines of emotional availability, maturity, or emotional intelligence. All right. So if you want to be a valued man, a high valued man, an attractive man to other women, understand your emotions better and get better at understanding how other people's emotions affect them. All right? Because emotional intelligence is what will separate you from every other guy by tenfold. Because a lot of guys do not want to talk about emotional intelligence because they think it's soft shit. All right? And here's the thing. They just don't understand it yet. All right? I would literally feel bad for those guys. I empathize with them because they're just unaware of how valuable it is to understand how my emotions affect me. All right? Because once I have a better understanding of why I think certain things, why I feel certain things, then I can actually start to shift them. All right? And you shine a light on that scary thing that you thought was always going to hold you back, and it doesn't hold you back anymore, and you ultimately become the man that you know you're capable of becoming. That's what emotional intelligence does, and that's what becoming your own influence can do to you. All right? So take the time to read the books. And by the way, guys, if you want more, I know a lot of this comes back to having women be attracted to you, and I keep prefacing this with whatever you're attracted to, all right? Because I want to be respectful to that. Yet women like guys who read. And you want to know why? Because it shows the woman that the man is interested in making progress. It shows the woman that the man is treating himself like an investment. He's taking himself seriously. He wants to learn more. And that also shows that he's willing to change certain things. What does that say about being in a relationship with him? Maybe he's willing to talk about things. Maybe he's willing to listen to me a little bit more. Maybe he's willing to change a certain behavior to better suit something that I might need. And the relationship is more important than his ego. All right? That's what that could indicate. All right? Now, obviously, that's a lot of indicators just from reading. Yet that's what I have literally heard women tell me for the women that I've interviewed on this podcast and the women that I've just talked to of why it's so valuable for men to start reading books. All right? Reading books, listening to podcasts, and taking courses on mindset, behavior, human behavior, psychology, emotional intelligence. I can't harp enough on the importance of emotional intelligence in men. I believe that the men who will kick ass in the 21st century are the emotionally intelligent men, bar none. All right? So that's number 5. And as you do these things that most men don't do, all right? So I want to actually kind of go back to this because I kind of went pretty deep on this one. These are the things that most men don't do, all right? Because most men are playing video games. They are doom scrolling into the very late hours of the night and getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And then maybe they're scrolling into they're rolling into their job a little late and they don't really give a shit about much. They don't really have direction. They don't really have enthusiasm. They have low self-esteem and they don't want to talk about it. They probably have poor diets and they probably go on social media all the time to escape, or they probably drink a lot or go or use a ton of porn to escape as much as they can of their actual reality. All right? That's probably what a lot of guys do. All right. And I've seen a lot of guys who do this with the guys who we've worked with in our mentorship program who want to actually change and actually outlining a better future and a better vision that can be possible. All right. So when you do the things that most men don't do, AKA the reading, the podcast, the treating yourself like an investment, and the courses, brushing up on emotional intelligence, you start to become a more valuable man to every single person that you interact with. Think about what that will do for your family, your future family, your current family. Think about what that will do for all of your friends when they realize, man, he's really leveling himself up. Maybe I should take a look in the mirror. Think about what that might do for your intimate relationships, right? Your girlfriend, your wives, your spouses, or whoever you like, right? What might that do for them? All right. What about the people at your job? When they see that you're elevating yourself, what do you think that might do for your business team, to your boss? So as you start to level up, right, in your own thinking and who you are as a man, you're going to start to inspire everybody else around you. All right. And frankly, if you don't, then you're in the wrong crowd and you should probably jump into find another group and find another tribe. All right. Make sure you're never the smartest guy in the room. All right. So those are the things. Do the things that most men don't do. All right. That's kind of wrapped into number 5. All right. Stop it with the video games. Stop it with the vaping. Stop ordering DoorDash. Figure out how to cook. Buy a course. One of those courses that you could buy. Basic Cooking 101. Eat meat. Eat fruits. Drink protein shakes. All right. I know that sounds like the most meathead thing I've probably ever said. Here's another one. Stop gambling. All right. I have tons and tons of friends who do sports gambling. And yes, you could probably do this in a healthy manner. Yet the majority of the people I know don't really do this in that healthy of a manner. All right. Stop sports gambling. It's a super anxiety-ridden behavior, and you can lose a lot of money with it. All right. So just be super, super aware of that and super careful with that. Drinking, doom scrolling on social media, making yourself feel horrible, right? Treat yourself like a healthy human, right? Treat yourself like a professional. If you were the professional you, how would you operate? All right. So that was number 5 when it comes to becoming your own influence. And number 6, daily work, build discipline and consistency. One of the things that Brandon said when I asked him, what is the one thing that guys can do to start being that guy? And he said, do your dailies. He said, do the boring shit. And I could not agree more with him. All right. Doing boring things is obviously not entertaining, and we don't want to do those things. Yet it's the boring shit that is going to compound over time and give us the rewards. When we're 23 and we start doing the boring shit, when you're 26, 27, you're going to be that guy, no pun intended, that's light years ahead of all your buddies. When it comes to your health, your happiness, possibly your income, maybe even your relationships, what you're looking for in a relationship. All right, you know exactly what you want. Don't think that if you stay single for 3 to 5 years, girls are going to be like, what's wrong with him? The wrong girls will say what's wrong with him. The right girls might say, maybe he took the time to actually become a man that's worth it. Think about that. All right. I've had both of those scenarios. I've had girls say, yeah, I told my friends that you didn't have a relationship for 5 years. And they said that was a bunch of red flags, and I said, that's unfortunate. Right. Maybe we're not, for each other, and that's okay. Right. And then I explained to this person, here's what I was doing over those 5 years. I needed to actually become a man that was worthy. I needed to become a man that believed in himself a little bit. I needed to become a man that had a vision, that had a future, that became a high valued man. And now I'm good with that. And then she was like, oh, that makes total sense. Right. Then we actually had some really good conversations about it. All right. So again, going back to that, right? Taking the time to actually develop yourself. All right. So that daily work, build discipline and consistency. Make each day have a purpose. Right? Do something each day that you really don't want to do. And the simplest way to do this, all right, this isn't going to be a brain buster here. Fucking work out. Work out. This weekend, I was with my father who is the greatest influence in my life. All right, may I add that? Came down to Tampa, Florida with me, and we had an awesome weekend together. And we were talking about mentorship and what I'm doing with young men. And he said, if you were to give them one piece of advice, these young guys, what would it be that they can do to change their life? And immediately I said, work out. Because working out, yes, it does improve the way you physically look, which helps you feel better about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, holy shit, that is a feeling that is really hard to duplicate. All right. Because at the end of the day, all you have is you. All right. What do you think about yourself when you're by yourself? Tom Bilyeu said that, who's the host of the Impact Theory podcast. what you think about yourself has such of a determining factor in your life, how you behave, everything. And exercise is a really great way to change what you think about yourself. All right. You start to see some cuts in your stomach. You start to feel a little sore, right? You start to consistently get in a routine of intentionally putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. What do you think that might do for your work life, for your school life, for your romantic relationships, for your friendships? You are getting good at doing things that other people don't want to do. What do you think that might do to your character, your resilience, your grit? Now, the second thing that it does to you is it also forces you to get good with maintaining discomfort. All right. So when you go to the gym and you do those bicep curls and you have to fight through 8, 9, 10 reps and you don't want to do another rep, you have a decision to make. You can bop out of that and not do that rep, or you could actually go into it. You're intentionally choosing discomfort. One of my favorite books that I recommend every person read is Deliberate Discomfort by Jason Van Camp. They're a bunch of badass human beings who are in Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Special Forces, wrote a book about how to intentionally make yourself uncomfortable. All right. It's fantastic. And it builds better men, better humans. You know, it's an important thing that I think so many of us run away from, obviously, because we don't like discomfort, right? We try to seek comfort. Yet I think the world belongs not only to the emotionally intelligent men, yet the emotionally intelligent men who are willing to do uncomfortable things. All right. And exercise is a great way to do that. So if you do not exercise right now and you are in the ages of 18 to 25 and you're listening to this and you're like, dude, I have no idea what to do, literally just start walking. Go outside and go for a walk each day for 10 minutes. Go in silence and just think. All right. After 2 weeks, then push it to 20 minutes. Push it to 20 minutes. Then after that 20-minute walk, go inside and do 10 push-ups. All right. And then what I would do is I would go on ChatGPT and I would say, hey, for the first 2 weeks, I walked for 10 minutes. For the second 2 weeks, I did 20 minutes and 10 push-ups. Can you give me a progression that changes my workout every 2 weeks so that at the end of a year, I am doing full-blown workouts? And ChatGPT will create you a whole workout that I guarantee will be better than the one that I can just whip up right now. All right. That's exactly what I would do. All right. You could do things like strength training, running, CrossFit, boxing. The goal is to just get your heart rate up. A great thing that I heard was Andy Elliott. Andy Elliott is this really violent, intense social media guy, but I believe he teaches sales. And I highly recommend following him because he talks about a lot of things just around grit and around just working fucking harder. All right. And one of the things that it was actually his wife, I believe her name's Jacqueline Elliott. She said that it's not about the six pack. It's about the mentality that it takes to get a six pack. And I've said this multiple times, and I've said this in a lot of different episodes because one of my most favorite sayings is that if you have a six pack, I already know about 10 things about you. All right. I already have a really good gauge of your mentality. And frankly, have more friends with six packs, bar none. Find more people who have six packs and hang out with them and watch what happens over the next 30, 60, 90 days. All right. So that's the next thing. Daily work, build discipline and consistency. And the easiest way to do that is to get involved with exercise right now. Like literally as you're listening to this podcast, go move. Go do something that is going to get that heart rate up and start to build that habit of intentionally putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Number 7, men do what's required. All right. This is very similar to doing hard things, right? There's a difference between what you can do and what you will do. The actions that you choose to take determine your future. All right. Hard things like going to bed early. You might think, well, that's not that hard. Try it. Try to do it for 5 days in a row. Get to bed at the exact same time. Let's say 8:30, 9 p.m., right? Whatever is early for you. And don't say 11 p.m. is early for me. Let's actually take that seriously. Get to bed really early. Try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and see if you can consistently do that. Eat well. Stop ordering DoorDash. Stop eating processed food. Stop drinking soda. All right. I'm a big proponent of meat, fruit. I drink protein shakes, potatoes, rice, and water. That's literally all that I eat. And I have been doing that for the last probably 60 days, and I've never felt better in my life physically. And I think I'm in the best shape that I've ever been in my life right now. And I think it's because of that diet, and I love it and I enjoy it. Treat yourself like a car, like a Ferrari. All right. What is the food that you're putting into your body? All right. Think about that, because you ultimately become what you eat. All right. And that's hard. It's really easy to sit on our asses and order DoorDash and Chipotle right to our door. That's right there. It's much harder for me to actually make some rice, make some chicken, make some steak. Yet I know what I'm making with those things. And by the way, Chipotle is actually probably a bad example, like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or something like that, because I actually don't mind Chipotle. But eat well, go to bed early, exercise, obviously, and stay disciplined. Men do what's required. I heard it was either Alex Hormozy or Bedros Kilian who said that. Men do what's required. Boys do what they want. All right? Are you a boy or are you a man? If you're a boy, you probably want to play video games. You probably want to vape. You probably want to gamble. You probably want to go out with all your buddies, get trashed, and have a lazy Sunday. That's probably what you want to do. Yet men do what's required. Men make themselves better. Men are kind. Men work out. Men eat a certain way. That's what we're trying to build with our mentorship program. All right? The world does not need more boys who are confused, stressed, and anxious and lacking confidence. Okay? So, number 8, 3 action steps to implement today from what I just walked you through. All right? So number 1, social media. All right. This is one of the things that Brandon and I talked about. As I mentioned, Brandon actually completely just went on a hiatus from social media. If that's something that you want to do, give it a shot, see how it goes. Set a 10-minute daily limit to your social media. Turn your phone to grayscale. And number 3, keep your phone out of your room at night. This will help with going to bed early. This will also help with your actual phone usage throughout your day. All right. Number 2, daily habits. Exercise a minimum of 4 days per week for 30 minutes. Make it a non-negotiable priority. Remember, exercise is, I personally believe, more beneficial for what's between the ears. All right. Yes, it makes you look a certain way. And yes, it makes you have a physically strong, healthy body, which looks good out at the pool, and it looks good at the beach, and it looks good when you're in the mirror. All right. And that stuff's important when it comes to our self-image and our thoughts and beliefs about who we are. Yet intentionally making that choice to put your shoes on, go to the gym, wake up early, and lift that iron when you don't want to, and when your bones and your muscles and your tendons are sore and tight, and you continue to do it. Imagine what that will do for every other area of your life. All right. So number 2, daily habits. Exercise a minimum of 4 days per week for 30 minutes. Make it a non-negotiable priority. And if you have completely no idea of where to start, use the ChatGPT prompt. Start with just a 10-minute walk for 2 weeks, then do a 20-minute walk for 2 weeks with 10 push-ups, and then filter that into ChatGPT and have it make you a full workout routine for the remainder of the year. All right. And number 3, relationships in your 20s. Do not rush into this. Remember, this relationship, your intimate relationship with whoever you love, is one of the biggest investments, if not the biggest investment of your life. All right. Make sure that we are developed enough to make that decision. That's why I think doing it in your later 20s, 25 plus, is a better idea, because we are more developed as men. Our brains are literally more developed as men. I think our brains stop developing by the age of 25 in humans. Make sure that we have some values, we have some direction, we have some money, we have a little bit of a foundation of what we're looking for, of who we are. We're okay with being alone, right? Taking those long walks by ourselves and figuring out a little bit more about who we are and where we want to go. And we also are okay with having that social aspect in our life and that community. All right. Late 20s is when I personally think is the best time to start getting into those relationships. All right. Those intimate ones. Because here's the thing. Focus on becoming a valuable man, someone who enhances others' lives. If you think about leadership, right? Leadership is enhancing the other people around you, right? Having the ability to have a common vision and making the other people around you better by asking them questions, by listening to them, by allowing them to work through the challenges, right? Empowering them to be their own leader. We do not want to make more followers. We want to make more leaders. That's what great leaders do, okay? And the last piece of the relationship in your 20s, if you bring nothing to the table, you're going to attract other people who bring nothing to the table. Start being a man who brings something to the table, and watch the type of people that you start to attract into your life. All right? So, if you got something valuable out of today's episode, give it a like, give it a review, give it a rating, share it to your social media pages. But remember, only go on social media for 10 minutes a day. This was our first follow-up episode with my buddy Brandon Danowski, where we talked about all of these things. So if you want an even longer episode on all of these things, go check out that episode. It's number 182 with Brandon Danowski. And until next time, keep managing your stress, being more confident, developing better habits, and keep being that guy. I'm DJ Liguori, and I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see ya.